I was a little bit fearful that having a baby would, I kind of like put me behind, I guess. I'm so incredibly grateful for my daughter and I love her and I would not give it up for the world. But I did have, this little fear in me. You can think that something will be limiting, but it's not. You can make things limiting. You can make anything in life limiting. It's just how you approach it. You're not behind. You're not behind. You're just on your own timeline.
Hello and welcome to We Interrupt This Broadcast, a podcast about things happening in the Australian screen industry. Today, our guest is Lianne Mackessy. Is a multi-passionate creative whose body of work spans acting, screenwriting, and directing. As a storyteller, Lianne's work draws on her rich personal backstory to bring complex, empathetic stories to the screen. Also, this year, her film Tuesday, Tuesday won Most Outstanding Emerging Female Director, the Rebel8 Award at Flickerfest 2026. And also her film Crescendo was the winner of the relaunched Tropfest 2026. Lianne, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So diving right in, I'd really love to know, obviously it's been an exciting first part of this year, but that is the tip of the iceberg of a very long career and a lot of hard work. So I'd love to know what parts of your journey to you are the most significant in retrospect?
The first one in 2016, I went to study screenwriting. And prior to doing that, I was studying acting and working as an actor. And I wanted to create my own work and not just always leave it in the hands of other people to say yes. And prior to that, I had no idea how screenwriting was developed, how they created such layered dialogue and created complex worlds. That for me is definitely one thing, because then I ran with screenwriting and I absolutely loved it. And it actually pivoted me from the main focus being acting to then I wanted to tell stories and focus on that rather than only use it as a tool to create work for myself as an actor.
Coming from acting and enjoying reading scripts and developing characters with all your experience to bring to those characters, what was it like writing your first script for someone else to perform in?
I loved it. It's such a, for me, being able to create the world yourself from the ground up and bring your own experiences and bring along characters that you've met along the way and attitudes and experiences and pour them into a story rather than being prescribed the story and the character and bringing yourself to it to bring it alive. I loved being able to create it. I just turned on a part of my imagination, I think, that I exercised when I was a kid. And I think it unlocked that for me again, but just being able to have that sense of play and imagination, but learn how to put it within structure.
Tremendous. And you mentioned there was another moment that you think was quite significant in retrospect. What was the other?
Yes, working with Bus Stop Films. So Genevieve Clay-Smith, she invited me on to work with Bus Stop Films. And at this point, I hadn't directed anything before. So after I finished the screenwriting course, she invited me to come on to tutor the filmmakers there. And at the end of the year with the filmmakers, you create a project, and it's usually a short film. And so I was writing in collaboration with the students. And then it was the first time I started directing the films and just had so much fun doing it. And the first film that I directed, it was Not a Wallflower, with Mandy McElhenney was in it, and that ended up going to MIF. And it was just such a joy creating it and a joy directing it. And it was such a beautiful experience that it made me want to continue directing.
How does your life outside filmmaking show up in your work? Or is there no such thing as life outside filmmaking?
Yeah, I find it hard to separate life and filmmaking. I think it shows up in everything that I do. A lot of the work that I have produced, I've written as well. And a lot of it has been based off experiences that I've had. It's never a copy and paste, a direct experience, but it might be inspired by a time in my life or a relationship or a job that I had. And I find it very hard to separate because I write what I know and that's how I can connect to story and character. But even in things that are not based on my experience at all, say for Bus Stop Films, when I would have to write something that was, say, like a rom-com that the students, it's really fun the way that they create work there and the students are the ones that have the voice in what we make. So I wrote a rom-com and it had nothing to do with my experience, but I think everything that I do still has part of me in it, maybe a rhythm of dialogue or like rhythm of syntax of someone that I may have met, or a particular attitude that I want to imbue on a character. There's always something from my life that's in there, and I find it very difficult to separate.
And is that kind of a circular way of working in that you learn the craft of screenwriting and it shows you how to reconnect with that imagination of childhood and so many other things that you can do with story worlds, but then you do something as authentic and real and grounded as Crescendo. So I'm interested in that cycle of expansion, but bringing that back down to reality. Does that ring true for you at all?
Yes, there's a lot of expansion in what you do, but then when you bring it back down to reality, I always come from a point of view of something I'm experiencing. So even within a world that's, fun to create and layered, and there's a lot of imagination involved, it definitely does boil down to usually a simple experience. I often just tell simple stories that might be a moment, but it does boil down to a truth and a grounded emotion. And most of what I do is emotion. Actually, everything that I do is or have done is emotionally grounded. And I think I work a lot of like performance-led, character-driven work. So yes, while I think there's moments of expansion and play, it still does boil down to something quite simple and grounded and real.
And no matter how extreme any premise might be, unless it's grounded in that emotional truth, it will fail to connect, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. And it would fail to connect with myself as well. I can only drive forward and be interested in creating work that is honest and grounded. And I can't expect an audience to connect with that if I don't even connect with the material.
And I always think that you need to live a lot of life, not have watched a lot of films to really tell stories that are interesting.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's been one of my, I guess now I see it as a strength, but yeah, I have worked so many jobs and, just done so much life and have a lot of experience under my belt, life experience, not industry experience, but it's all serves towards storytelling. And I now see it as a strength.
Absolutely. And I think that is a shining strength of your work and the experiences that you've had. It just comes so strongly through in your work. So looking at Crescendo, how did the Tropfest opportunity shape the project? Often people have their dream slate of projects, but you need to be responsive to opportunities. So I'd love to hear about how that opportunity shaped the project.
Yeah, that Tropfest the opportunity completely shaped the project. I don't know if I would have created this story. I hadn't even thought about developing a story that's about a mother. I had only just had my baby. I started writing it. And so when Tropfest came out, or they announced it, I was searching high and low for stories. When you're under pressure to like write a story or come up with an idea, it is so hard. So I was kind of looking for drama in anything, any conversations I was having, any phone calls. I was just looking for drama. And it ended up coming out of a conversation with my acting agent. Actually, after the conversation, it kind of inspired a little story, and it was about my real feelings and emotions about not being left behind after having a baby, feeling the pressure to create and put another story out there before I felt it was too late. And so Tropfest completely shaped that by pushing me to come up with an idea, but also just it was such a quick turnaround. Started writing in September and it was due in, I think, the 8th of January. So write, shoot, edit, get it in. Even just that time frame really shaped the way that it was created, but I think in the best way, because it just made us be really instinctive and like go with our gut and make decisions quickly, where sometimes you just have a bit too much time to mull over things. So it was, for me, I really enjoyed working in this tight time frame for this particular project, and I just found it was really fun and freeing.
Yeah, and I think constraints free you up from thinking too hard about it, like you said, and you have to be instinctive because it's decades of work and experience that translate into that instinct. I love that anecdote of someone asked Picasso to do a sketch on a napkin, and he said, that'll be $20,000. And they said, but that took you 2 seconds. He said, yeah, but it took me 30 years to learn how to do that in 2 seconds.
Yes, absolutely love that.
Mm.
But yes, I think it not only the years of craft development that kind of allow you to be freed up. I think you take the pressure off when you know you have such a limited time. I just took the pressure off trying to be perfect or try, not that you can ever be perfect in art, but I guess I do have sometimes a level of trying a perfectionist, I kind of tone to me. And it was just nice to go, we've only got this much time. Let's just have fun, slap something together. And while you're still, of course, everything was really planned out, thought out. But I think it just allowed us to have a bit more play and freedom because we didn't have a lot of expectations.
Yeah, and when you take everything else away and all you have time to do is say something that's true, it's
Yes,
going to surface that quite quickly rather than trying to pack more and more into that short time period.
exactly.
And I absolutely adore, it's one of my favorite fake outs I've ever seen in a film, when she's brushing her teeth and she's dropping the kids off with the neighbor, and then this sort of just little moment, little head wiggle of like, no, I can't do that. But maybe, no, I won't do that. And it's all little things like that that I think add up to the beautiful authenticity of it, because everyone there's so many different, by being so specific, it makes it so relatable. So some people have been late for something. They might not have had the pressure of a new baby and a toddler and an audition, but they can relate to a difficult conversation with a parent. They can relate to being under pressure. That moment with the bus, I was just cringing with recognition of like, I've missed that bus too. It offered so many moments of connection with the audience. And was that present to you as you were making it?
First of all, thank you for saying that, because we've had a lot of people reach out and just say how much they connected to it and it was so relatable. So that was really nice. But while we were making it, no, I don't think that I was hyper aware of that. It was more just thinking about what are the things that I've experienced or other people, like, that is true to me, that has held me up, and that makes sense for the character and the story. But yes, in hindsight, looking at it, we all have those moments, and you hate being the person who comes going, sorry, I've had a morning. I know I look really irresponsible and like I don't care, but I swear I've had a morning. And I think we can all relate to that.
I think that phrase is just so evocative. I've had a morning, and everyone knows what that means. And I think you've hit on something there that I think is really exciting, is that, trying to make something that people are going to find relatable, that seems like it could drive you mad. Whereas if you focus on just doing something that's true, it'll connect in so many ways that you would never expect, that you couldn't plan for.
100%, because I could never guess other people's experience, and I can't, you can have an idea of who the audience might be, but I also don't exactly know. I didn't know that so many men would also reach out and say how relatable it was to them, and how much they loved it. So yeah, I think guessing and trying to please an audience doesn't for me, just I can't connect and doesn't work, and I probably would miss the mark. But I think that's what we love about watching other people's work, is because we see ourselves in it and we see moments that we can connect with and go, yes, me too.
Yeah, and it can be quite a risk to put yourself out there so vulnerably and say, this happened to me, or this is something I know to be true. But that's really the only thing you have any control over, is that input of, at least I can make this true. And hopefully people will connect with that.
Yeah, 100%. And even her decision at the end, to allow herself to pause. It's funny, everyone has a different perspective of what it meant for her to make that decision at the end to not go to the audition. But for me, it was about her allowing herself to take pause and allowing herself to be an artist and a mother, and them not compete against each other, and give herself just the break that she needs. And she will continue to be an artist, but she'll do it on her own terms. Whereas some people saw it as, oh, why did she give up? Why did she give up her career? Why did she choose the kids? We're not living in the 1950s, which is, of course, people can have their perspective and see it. Yeah, that's the beauty of art. Everyone sees it a different way. But for me, she chose to have pause, to allow herself to have pause. And it's funny because that's not my experience. Maybe it was a letter to myself to say, okay, you're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to enjoy this moment without stressing that your career won't pass you by. But the character definitely made a different decision than I did. I was creating a short film when my baby was 3.5 months old and chucking her in it and bringing her to the recce's, and, but yeah, so while a lot of it is my experience, I guess I wanted the character to be able to experience something that I hadn't given myself.
I think that's beautiful. And it's so interesting you say the way in which your film is kind of a Rorschach test for other people. It's like whatever they're projecting onto it, they don't realize just how much they might be unintentionally revealing something about themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting to hear everyone's perspectives on why she made that particular decision, and read the comments under the video and you're like, "No, I didn't mean it like that."
Yeah. And once you give it to the audience, the film really comes together in their head, is
Yes.
the final part of it. But that's definitely what I took from the film, is that giving yourself that grace and saying you still have time, because we can get caught up in this hustle culture. If I'm not constantly working and constantly producing, if I'm not growing, I'm dying. I'm a shark that's got to keep moving forward
Yeah,
versus, I am an artist and a parent and a participant in society and so many other things, not just if I'm not doing this, I'm nothing.
exactly. And just that, yeah, there's a lot of sometimes stress. And I think, I mean, in all industries, but the creative industry where it's incredibly hard to make it and there's not a lot of financial gain, for a lot of us, a lot of time. So that kind of having to prove it to yourself and hurry up and make it before it's too late. Yeah, it can be a constant battle for people.
Absolutely. And on that, how have some of the things that you might have thought would limit you have become strengths for you?
Well, first of all, talking about motherhood might go straight onto there. I guess, to be honest, I was a little bit fearful that having a baby would, I kind of like put me behind, I guess. And I want to be so careful of how I word this because I'm so incredibly grateful for my daughter and I love her and I would not give it up for the world. But I did have, this little fear in me that maybe I would take a few years out or a year or two out and then any career I ever had aspirations for would just pass me by and it would all disappear. And I know that's quite dramatic, but I think a lot of us have that fear and that is not the case at all. She has only enriched my life and even like enriched my artistry and given me, I guess, more perspective and given me more to think about and write about. And I mean, I wouldn't have made this Tropfest film had it not have been for her. So she's actually accelerated my career.
I think that's wonderful. And I want to thank you for sharing that, because being able to share that anxiety with people, I'm sure that will have such an impact on people's own perspective on approaching their career and things that might be considered liabilities but are actually strengths.
Yes, and some wise man said to me not very long ago when I was chatting about Crescendo, and his mother-in-law said to him, "Don't you worry, babies always bring their own bread." Because he had the exact same feeling. He's also a director, and yeah, he's had that exact same feeling, and it's so true. And you can think that something will be limiting, but it's not. And I think that anything, you can make things limiting. You can make anything in life limiting. It's just how you approach it.
And what does a sustainable filmmaking life look like to you personally?
A sustainable career for me would look like being a jobbing director, a gun for hire, working on TV series. And then I would also like to develop my own work and create my own projects. I know that's further ahead for me. Also, I would like to create, make commercials and use the money to then fund my creative projects. I'm currently being mentored by a commercial production company at the moment. So hopefully in the future, I am able to direct commercials and use the money to fund my creative ventures. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to do all of that. I'm not there at the moment.
Right on. But obviously, more time on set.
Absolutely.
And having had the success now with Tropfest, what kind of stories are you drawn to now? What might you want to explore next?
I think next I would love to explore. I'm interested in females at a crossroad, women who maybe particularly have caregiving roles or something in their past that holds them back and they're at a crossroads, reinvention. And also, I'm interested in building a world where there are, in long form, maybe in a TV series or a feature, there are lots of female perspectives, women who are messy, have messy relationships, who have deep friendships, supportive friendships, and ones that are necessary but not perfect. And yeah, so I'm at the moment interested in developing something like that into a long form.
Cool. Hopefully, some producers out there hear that and go, "That's exactly what I'm looking for. We should call Lianne Mackessy."
Yeah.
And if someone is just starting out, I suppose this is true for at any point in career, but maybe for people who are starting out and feels like they're behind in some way, what would you say to them?
Oh gosh. For me, I don't think that feeling has ever left me, or maybe it won't. But I think just really focusing on what you have control over. You don't have control over the industry or opportunities. That all comes and goes. But what you do have control over is developing your craft, developing your voice, and making the work. And I think if you continue to do that, some sort of momentum will build. And I just think it's very important to focus on what you have in front of you and what you can do, because you're not behind. You're not behind. You're just on your own timeline.
That's great advice. And how have you built your community and your village of people over the years? I know you've worked with Kate Vinan, you've worked with Bus Stop Films, you obviously had a great mentor and teacher in Stephen Davis, but I'm sure there's a wider community of people that you've worked with and know, and I'm curious as to how you've approached building that, either intentionally or just through instinct.
Yeah. I've been able to develop a really wonderful community, but it has taken a lot of years. And I'm not a big networker by any means. I think I build intentionally, and I always seem to gravitate towards people who are just really honest and really grounded and want to create genuine friendships, or genuine collaborations and working relationships over surface ones that we're just in the same business and we want to create the same work, or, we want to create something. I want to work with people who want to create meaningful work. And sorry, I'm rambling.
Not at all. Like, I think you're absolutely hit the nail on the head,
Oh, okay.
because like creating intentionally and building those genuine relationships, like networking is kind of a dirty word.
Yeah, yes. And look, I think networking comes from making the work and then being introduced to people and building relationships from there. But in terms of creating community, it, yeah, it's taken me many years. It's like friendships, right? It takes a lot of years to really weed out the really good friends that you want to continue to like do life with. And that's, for me, community and collaboration is the same, as long as it's genuine and they almost become like friends as well. A lot of them do become friends, but people you want to create with and support and for the long term. And I think through Afters, I've been able to get that beautiful community. I particularly wanted to do the masters at Afters, not only to develop my craft, but I wanted to go there to find collaborators. And I found incredible friends and collaborators. And it's just been a slow process. You slowly get them over the years, and then you look back and you've got this wonderful community of people.
Yeah, and there are so many dots that only connect in retrospect,
Oh,
where
absolutely.
you couldn't have planned it if you tried.
No, never. That's the beautiful thing about usually the best community, like the best collaborators, is they form naturally. They form like organically. Yeah.
And to anyone who's thinking, oh, I can't get started unless I have the budget that I want to tell the story I want, would you suggest maybe they get out of that paralysis of I can't start unless I have X?
I think write something that you do know you have the budget for, right? If you've got an apartment you can use, or your friend has an apartment that they would give up for a day or two, write something that you can manage, get your friends to act in it, and then find other people that want to create work and really want to practice their skills and get a film out there. So I think you can always manage it if you just be scrappy. Go find the people. Go it's not easy. Making a film is very hard. It takes a lot of time and it can be expensive. Now we've got so many online groups that people are always looking for collaborators. So I think just write to your budget and write what you know and use the people around you.
Tremendous. And thinking about, obviously, there's a lot of attention that's come from this Tropfest win. It's a relaunch of Tropfest, but it's also an excellent film and very high profile. And that would be a lot to navigate. Obviously, it was hard to get us together for a chat because of the deluge of information and well wishes and questions and interviews coming to you. I'd love to know how you've navigated that and what your next steps are.
Yes, it got very busy after Tropfest. Also, I'm trying to juggle life and motherhood, so it's the days that I can manage. It's opened up a lot of meetings and opportunities, which have been really lovely, and lovely conversations like this. So it's it's been quite a lot to juggle, and I think now I'm trying to create some free time that I can start the work again, start writing, because the question is always, what's next? What are you writing next? What's next? But I need the time to sit down and make the next. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you put so much effort into any film, and the last thing you think about while you're in the thick of that is what's next.
Right? You're like, why not just give me a bit? I need to go live a bit of life and get inspired again.
What are some of the other factors in your experience that you may have seen as limiting, but now are clay that you use for your work?
Yes, I grew up in regional New South Wales in a small town, and I had no connection to industry, or even it just felt so far away. Sydney felt so far away. Coming from that background and having to even just work my butt off to get to Sydney and then create a new life here and work countless jobs to even pursue a career and try to get myself into the industry at times could feel very frustrating and isolating. There was no guidance. It was just kind of me on my own trying to figure it out. And, I think it was incredibly useful looking back, just gaining the life experience, having to work the countless jobs, being exposed to all sorts of people, having to just have sheer tenacity to get by and also be self-reliant, being able to get a million no's and still show up anyway. I think that all really worked for my favor. And now looking back, I've got so many stories to tell, and the experience for myself was very, very necessary. And so it was definitely a strength.
That's excellent. It reminds me of this phrase I heard: when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and not before.
So true.
So much of that stuff, you're like, oh, this is so frustrating. But years later, you're like, oh, I needed that. If I'd had this success earlier, I wouldn't have known what to do with it.
Oh gosh, and if my idea of success happened for me, I would have been 20 and it would have been terrible. And I would not have even been creating films. I would have been an actor doing something. I'm so grateful for the way that life went for me. And, it gives you a certain type of resilience too. And I think you need that experience to pour into stories. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had anything to tell, really.
Very well put. Thank you for touching on growing up regionally and that, experience that a lot of people have that they don't talk about, of that isolation. I think that'll be really helpful for people to hear. That
Yeah.
there's some way forward for them, even if they're feeling isolated. It's like, no, one day I'll be able to use this at the very least.
Absolutely. Yes.
So as we end every episode, we ask our guest, what's your big idea for the future of the industry?
This isn't touched on a lot, I don't think. I don't think the industry focuses on class enough. There's, we're so, which is such a brilliant and necessary thing that, diversity is now at the forefront. Thank goodness. I don't think that we have yet touched on class, and I think it is a necessary thing. I was having a conversation the other day during a panel, and myself and the other director both come from regional working class backgrounds, and class isn't looked at enough. There's a lot of working class stories on screen. There aren't a lot of working class people telling the stories, and while the industry is opening up in a lot of ways, I still think there is some gates that need to be open for some certain people, and maybe pathways where those voices are included, because we do have nothing about us without us. But I don't think that always lends itself to class stories. And I think that it really should.
I think that's brilliant. Could not agree more. That's something that it is a diversity criteria in the UK. It's not considered one here.
Yes. Yeah. And you see, you can see it on screen, and sometimes you want to cringe when there's certain socioeconomic stories being told, and you can tell the people telling them have never walked in those shoes. So there are a lot of things I think that need to change in the industry, but for me that's a biggie.
Oh, I think that's great. Oh, and students will often write a character who's a wheelchair user. First of all, they'll say wheelchair bound frequently, rather than seeing it as a device of freedom than of restriction. But they'll always write characters who are experiencing a disability or extreme poverty as utterly joyless, because
Mhm.
they think that's how they'd feel if they were in that situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sorry, I don't even have words for it when I see, people who have no idea what it is to walk out certain experiences in life, be the ones to tell that experience. And you can see when it usually misses the mark, and it's just, it's disrespectful.
But you can also see when they absolutely nail it, which you did with Crescendo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Lianne.
We Interrupt This broadcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the
Gadigal people of the Eora Nation,
the Turrbal and Yagara people,
the Yugambeh language people, and the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and we acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and first storytellers of these regions.
Always was, always will be.